kids this entire time. And I tolerated a lot for a very long time until I realized that I was being lied to or deceived. And at that point was when I sort of lost my patience with it. Asking everybody else to simply meet that level of sacrifice so that the family can exist.
So kids all stay home. Well, she's so compliant. She sees the value. And I'm like, dude, my life is really different.
I have really struggled.
Positive, and then what are we gonna do? I could be having Christmas with just me, my kids, and Meri.
Been a little bit rough on our family because it's like opened up this new platform for us to gripe at each other.
I guarantee, and if you're not getting to that place as a couple, someone...
You won't believe the tea we're spilling today. From secret breakups to shocking lies, this is unreal tea. Hit subscribe before the drama starts. Welcome, everyone. Today's tale is not merely explosive. It's the type of bombshell that would destroy the whole meticulously built facade of the Brown family forever. We believed the soap opera centered around divorces, family fights, and money disasters. But we were mistaken, so terribly mistaken. The corruption seeps further than anyone could have thought, spreading into family boundaries and tainting the soil they had called their promised land. What you're about to see is a piece of footage that has been circulating quietly among a small, tight-lipped group in Flagstaff, Arizona. This isn't Kody Brown for the TLC cameras. No script. No retakes. No filters. This is raw, unhinged Kody, raging, yelling, gesturing wildly. His fury bleeds through the screen. And this clip? It's just the beginning, a small glimpse of a much larger disaster. Because this single outburst holds the key to a massive, devastating civil lawsuit, a lawsuit not filed by Christine, Janelle, or Meri, but by the Browns' own neighbors, victims of what some are calling the Coyote Pass nightmare. Before we dig into the mountain of leaked papers, insider witness testimony, and stunning accusations, do me one speedy favor. Hit that like button if you want the unedited reality of Sister Wives, and subscribe with notifications on. You're not going to miss a moment of what's about to go down. Because what I'm about to share is a bombshell. To see the extent to which this disaster attained such epic heights, we must go back to the beginning, the Coyote Pass dream. Remember the sweeping aerial shots? The pristine land? The pines, the views of the mountains? Kody, standing tall, arms aloft, proclaiming it their forever home, a Brown family paradise where grandkids would play between houses and peace would reign. But nearly as quickly as the dream was conceived, it started to go bad from the inside out. The family began fighting over lot assignments. Christine was ready to bail. Janelle attempted to remain pragmatic, only to be shelved. Meri distanced herself, and Robyn? She and Kody started building their own little kingdom, one that would soon come under attack, not from within the family, but from the world at large. Where TLC cameras recorded the meltdowns from within, the one-house plan debacle, Christine's histrionic departure, COVID chaos, something much nastier was transpiring mere property boundaries away. And its cost? Perpetual. Insiders in the Coyote Pass community draw a dismal picture. These are not stray critics, these are property owners, retirees, young families, folks who invested their life savings in rural heaven, seeking tranquility. Then came the Browns. Initially, the neighbors were guardedly hopeful. Okay, a reality show living next door was unusual, but harmless sounding. That optimism soon dissipated. Red flag number one? The dogs. We've all seen Kody and Robyn's dogs on the show, but we didn't see the mayhem behind the scenes. Of one report, it seems the dogs were not often kept indoors. They roamed freely onto gardens, over property lines, chasing chickens. One episode reportedly involved a dog barking fiercely at a small child who was playing in his own backyard until the father shooed it away. When confronted, Kody supposedly did not apologize. Instead, according to sources, he brushed it off with "dogs will be dogs, this is the country." His flippant demeanor didn't just excite rage, it communicated a disregard for the very community they lived in. Neighbors started monitoring the incidents in a private group chat. Kody's dog was in my garden again. Did anyone see the brown dog? Chased deer to my fence line. It was incessant, like a time bomb waiting to go off. But the mayhem didn't end there. Noise complaints were next. Neighbors reported hearing angry yelling, screaming bouts ringing through the peaceful terrain. Kody's yodeling yells, Robyn's melodramatic wails. Night after night, their arguments echoed through the quiet Arizona streets. One neighbor apparently commented that they didn't have to view the show. They heard it on live TV every other night. And Kody's fixation with his notorious cistern, a huge pit in the ground to provide water for their prospective houses. What did he do next? Well, a source report paints a shocking picture of what it was like for the neighbors. Kody, driven by what appeared to be an attempt to do something, would reportedly head out to the land at any time. We're talking 1000 p.m. on a Tuesday, 6 a.m. on a Sunday, and he would take his power tools. One of his neighbors insists she was awoken repeatedly by the noise of an excavator or a gas-powered auger or simply Kody shouting at some equipment under floodlights he'd jury-rigged to his truck. It was spasmodic, incoherent, and completely infuriating. Imagine trying to enjoy a quiet evening on your porch, watching the sunset over the mountains, only to have the peace shattered by the sound of a grown man having a screaming match with a trench he's trying to dig. It sounds like a comedy sketch, but for the people living there, it was a living nightmare. They had bought their property for peace and quiet. Instead, they had a front-row seat to the Kody Brown emotional breakdown circus with a soundtrack. This conduct, this ongoing disruption, was the fertile soil upon which the seeds of a lawsuit were planted. The neighbors, a collection of maybe 4 or 5 different property owners who shared the Browns' boundary, started talking. They exchanged notes. They related stories. And they knew they were all going through it together. Their quiet lives were being systematically dismantled by the anarchy spilling out of one family. They were in the shock wave of the Browns' meltdown. They thought they needed to do something, but they began small. Our insider tells us that their initial action wasn't a lawsuit. It was a respectful, formally typed letter. A letter written with the assistance of an attorney in their local town detailing their complaint. The loose animals, the disturbance at unreasonable times, the general disruption. It was, technically speaking, a cease and desist letter, but worded in the most friendly manner possible. It was an olive branch. It was a request for simple human decency and respect. And Kody Brown, in all his infinite wisdom, supposedly took that olive branch and burned it. The suit a public nuisance. Kody's supposed response to the neighbor's letter is, our sources tell us, the absolute most important turning point in this whole ordeal. It's the point this devolved from a neighborhood feud into full-fledged war. He didn't perceive a reasonable demand from his neighbors. He perceived an attack, a conspiracy. One source close to one of the surrounding families recalled what followed. Kody did not react with a letter from his own attorney. He did not convene a peaceful meeting. Rather, he reputedly went on the attack. This is where the threats that were veiled, a pillar of the upcoming lawsuit, started to emerge. He did not have a direct threat. Our source goes out of its way to explain. Kody is, at the very least, smart enough to refrain from making a direct actionable threat. Rather, he participated in what the lawsuit would come to refer to as a campaign of intimidation. He would, supposedly, be seen standing at his property line, just staring at the neighbors' houses for extended, awkward stretches, just staring. He would make phony theatric calls on the phone, walking the fence line and discussing defending his kingdom and how patriarchs must defend their land from invaders. The verbiage was always sufficiently ambiguous, but the aim was as clear as crystal. One of the most frightening accusations we've heard, and which would later be outlined in the legal complaint, is that of a neighbor who had recently put up a new costly fence to attempt to keep Kody's dogs from getting in. A few days after this, Kody was reportedly pacing back and forth along that new fence. The neighbor, standing in his window, heard him on the phone speaking to the effect that people erect fences believing they're secure. But out here, wind, elements, they have a knack for bringing things down. It would be a crying shame if nature were to repossess this neighborhood. Imagine hearing that? The implication is frightening. It's a threat shrouded in pseudo-spiritual pioneer man mumbo-jumbo. It's unadulterated pure Kody Brown. This was the last straw. The neighbors knew that talking sense to him was futile. They were having a man who envisioned himself as righteous warrior king and them as the enemy at the gates. They had no option. They drew their resources, acquired a reputable Flagstaff law firm, and on a date we think to be in late 23, filed a civil complaint against Kody Brown and Robyn Brown, the co-owners of the property from which the nuisance began. We can't yet obtain the complete official court filings. Those are notoriously difficult to find, particularly when settlements are allegedly in play, but our legal source, who has been apprised of what they contain, has provided us with an unprecedented glimpse inside the incendiary charges. This complaint wasn't filed under something insignificant. No, it was brought under a legal theory called public nuisance. And for the uninitiated, this isn't merely a matter of being a pesky neighbor. A case of public nuisance is when the conduct was so disruptive, so injurious, that it directly interfered with the entire community's right to peace, safety, and enjoyment of their property. Our source explains that the lawsuit ran more than 30 pages, detailing a methodical, step-by-step diary of what neighbors referred to as their nightmare on the block. Here are the underlying charges as we see them. This part was ruthless. It did not merely state the dogs escaped, it chronicled a pattern of neglect in gruesome detail. Dates, times, testimony. It described the notoriety chicken-chasing incident and the frightful event in which a young boy was surrounded by one of Kody and Robyn's big dogs. The lawsuit highlighted the emotional impact, with neighbors stating they no longer felt comfortable allowing their own children or pets to play freely. Their homes were now centers of stress rather than comfort. This section was said to read like a masterclass in documenting mayhem. Midnight construction projects with Kody working heavy equipment far beyond official hours. Shouting battles that rang through the quiet Arizona evening air. One plaintiff supposedly maintained a noise log, recording every disturbance, yelling, arguments, and even phrases neighbors said they heard coming from the Brown home. The argument in court? This was not simply country living. This was ceaseless, threatening sound that turned tranquil homes into zones of perpetual unease. This was the worst accusation, and possibly illegal. The lawsuit cut together examples of Kody's threatening conduct, from angry glares to threatening, boisterous telephone calls, and most horrifyingly, his supposed utterance, "Nature will reclaim this fence." The legal argument? Kody wasn't an eccentric reality TV star. He was someone neighbors felt actively unsafe to have as neighbors. This is where the lawsuit went to the jugular, and it could have been what financially ruined the Browns. The plaintiffs had a certified real estate appraiser assess the damage Kody and Robyn did to their presence. The report was crushing, finding their property values had been cut by 15 to 20% because of two reasons: the property being associated with a Sister Wives television circus, hardly something that attracted buyers looking for seclusion. The recorded history of having unresolved conflicts with neighbors. On an $800,000 house that equated to a possible loss of $160,000. On several properties, the suit alleged damages of nearly 7 figures. This was no longer about peace and tranquility. This was about big money. When Kody and Robyn were served, it was not merely a legal blow, it was an existential threat to their already faltering dream of constructing on Coyote Pass. And according to insiders, the reaction within their McMansion was uproarious. One source called Robyn's reaction complete emotional breakdown. She reportedly perceived the lawsuit as persecution rather than a result of what they had done. Sobbing to ask, "Why is everybody attacking us? Why can't anybody just leave us alone?" The neighbors weren't victims in her thinking. They were bullies, just like Christine or internet trolls, envious of her wedding and attempting to destroy them. There was no reflection. No responsibility, only blame. Kody, on the other hand, didn't sob, he seethed. To him, it wasn't a civil argument, it was a declaration of war. Sources say he started ranting about conspiracies, implying neighbors had been indoctrinated by estranged relatives or community leaders who always hated him. In his head, he wasn't the problem, he was a pioneer being targeted by narrow-minded individuals who didn't get him. He allegedly said to Robyn, "They want to cage me. They're trying to convert this uncharted country to some cookie-cutter suburban community with an HOA. I won't allow it. I'll battle to my last breath." And that determination to fight created his first and worst legal blunder. Kody thought he could litigate the lawsuit on his own. He believed he could simply walk into a court or an attorney's office and bludgeon them with his signature combination of bluster, circular reasoning, and impassioned soliloquies. He believed that his truth was so obvious that the legal system would have no option but to yield to it. He purported to write his own reply to the suit, a document that a legal analyst we spoke with characterized as a rambling, incoherent manifesto. It didn't even touch the points of law in the nuisance case. Rather, it was an angry rant about his personal hardship, the injustice of the media, and his landowner's philosophical right to do what he wanted. It was, in other words, suicide on the part of the lawyers. It wasn't until Robyn, in one fleeting moment of lucidity between the sobs, and despite the urgent exhortations of what remained of their advisors, persuaded him that they required a proper lawyer, that he finally consented. But by this time he had already established a disastrous precedent. He was not a defendant demanding a rational settlement. He was a belligerent settling in for war to the death. And what of the other wives, the ex-wives that is? How did they respond to this new crisis surrounding the dregs of their ex-family? Their responses, as relayed to us by our sources, are simply revealing. Christine, we're told, learned of the news and felt a deep relief. It was for her the ultimate vindication. She'd witnessed this facet of Kody for years. The rage, the irrationality, the obduracy of listening to reason. This suit was merely evidence to the world outside of the man she was lucky to have escaped. From what one friend said, her response was more like, well, that seems about right. I'm just glad I don't have to put up with that anymore. It was yet another bullet she had avoided by leaving when she did. Her name wasn't in the lawsuit. Her land wasn't in danger. That was Kody and Robyn's issue, a fiasco of their own invention. Janelle's response was more complex. She was and remains a co-owner of the Coyote Pass property. Her money, her vision, her future was invested in that ground. A person close to Janelle reports she was angry, but not at the neighbors. She was angry with Kody. Janelle is first and foremost a pragmatist. She reportedly viewed the lawsuit as the inevitable result of Kody's arrogance. She had cautioned him for years in her own understated manner regarding his combative approach. She knew he wasn't hearing her or anyone else. Now his ego was risking burning her whole investment. She was said to be in touch with her own lawyer, shortly attempting to determine how she might protect herself from the financial blow. The lawsuit wasn't merely theatrics for Janelle. It was a personal attack on her economic well-being, the nest egg she had spent her whole life accumulating. And Meri, as usual with Meri, her role was more remote, more mysterious. She also owns land, but she had mentally disinvested from the Coyote Pass dream years ago. Our informant on Meri's side indicates that she viewed the entire spectacle as a pathetic, sad circus. It was proof of the total and absolute failure of the family institution she had once so strongly believed in. She cared about her money, sure, but on an emotional level, just another Tuesday in the soap opera mess of Kody Brown. She remained detached, watching the train wreck from afar. So you've got the battle lines drawn. You've got on one side a solid, well-organized, and financially ready-to-go group of neighbors with a strong legal argument. You have on the other side a broken, dysfunctional, and financially hemorrhaging couple. A delusional, raging patriarch and his tearful, victim mentality-occupied wife. The stage had been set for a court battle. But what Robyn and Kody did not understand was that their adversaries were not merely battling for peace and quiet. They were battling over the worth of their homes, life's greatest investment. And they were set to use a legal plan that would take advantage of Kody and Robyn's single biggest vulnerability, their ramshackle and downright calamitous finances. The lawsuit was the spark. Their financial disorganization was gasoline. And the whole Coyote Pass dream was going to burn. And as we enter into the discovery part of this legal war, the depositions, the sharing of evidence, it's there that Kody and Robyn's patiently built on television make-believe front would be torn apart, and we would see the ugly, dysfunctional reality beneath. And we've got the inside scoop on what went down behind those closed doors. That's next, right after this. We've just sketched out the bombshell lawsuit Kody and Robyn Brown's neighbors on Coyote Pass have brought against them. But suing is one thing. Succeeding in his suit is another. And what transpired next in the pre-trial process called discovery is where this saga turns from mere controversy to psychological in-depth exploration of Kody and Robyn's minds and their deeper faults, sealing their destiny. And it all started with a single legally required event, the deposition. Our in-depth special report on the lawsuit that ended the Browns' Coyote Pass stream. In part 1, we explained how years of hellish behavior, as the neighbors referred to it, culminated in a huge civil suit against Kody and Robyn for being a public nuisance. We've discussed the loose canines, the incessant banging, the veiled threats, and the worst accusation, that their presence had brought down the property values of all those around them. Here we go into the core of the legal fight. The depositions, the court gamesmanship, and the annihilating fiscal realities that transformed a battle over their land into a struggle for mere survival. This is where private Brown family dysfunction went public. And we've got the inside, unconfirmed reports on what happened. Under oath, those depositions of hell. For the ignorant masses, a deposition is a pre-trial testimony. You're in a lawyer conference room under oath, and the opposing counsel can query you just about anything that has to do with the case. It's all taken down by a court stenographer and usually taped. It's a high-stress setting intended to extract the truth and pin down your narrative. For most, it's scary for people like Kody and Robyn who have invested 10 years perfecting their image for TV. It was a crucible. Our legal insider, according to a source who spoke directly with individuals present during the depositions, the proceedings were nothing short of a legal catastrophe for the Browns. Robyn entered the deposition looking pale and distressed, clutching a tissue before a single question was even asked. She was ready to play her familiar role, the victim. But the plaintiff's attorney, a seasoned litigator, wasn't buying it. His task: establish a definite pattern of negligence and disrespect. The interrogation started innocently enough. Ms. Brown, do you know that your dogs have been found on next-door neighbors' properties on several occasions? Robyn allegedly broke down in tears, declaring her affection for her pets, referring to them as family, and insisting they must have simply slipped out without any bad intentions. The attorney, undeterred, pressed on, furnishing an in-depth chronology with more than 20 incidents documented in 1 year. He asked bluntly, "Do you characterize that as slipping out or insufficient containment?" Robyn faltered, then recovered, launching into a lengthy anecdote about how one of the dogs is an emotional support animal for her children and becomes upset if cooped up. She attempted to frame negligence as sympathy. Then came the hard question. Do you know that your dog was discovered barking menacingly at a 4-year-old boy on a neighbor's property? Tears dried in an instant. Anger flashed. Robyn allegedly snapped, "My dog would never do that. He is the kindest, most gentle person." That man is lying. People lie on us all the time. They just want to hurt our family. Bye. Accusing a father of lying about his child's safety, Robyn came across as unsympathetic and combative on the record. Then there was the subject of noise complaints. Robyn denied everything, depicting her marriage to Kody as tranquil. "We communicate. We don't scream. We have passionate discussions because we love each other so much." That's when the attorney made a bombshell revelation, an audio recording of one of the Brown shouting fights, taken from one of the neighbors' properties. Kody's guttural bellowing and Robyn's shrill wailing filled the air. Robyn blushed bright red. She broke into new tears, accusing the neighbors of snooping and invading her privacy. Her attorney interrupted, but the damage was done. Her credibility was in tatters. The deposition, scheduled to be a full day, was abbreviated. Robyn departed an emotional mess, one who had lost no sympathy with opposing counsel. While Robyn's deposition was a disaster, Kody's was a full-blown apocalypse. He came in not as a defendant, but as a king speaking to peasants, with arrogance dripping from his lips, believing he could charm his way out of anything. The lawyer began with the dog question. Kody's answer? All bravado. "This is farm country," he thundered. "It's the West. Men who settled this country didn't complain about a dog passing through a property line they can't even see. Nature isn't governed by fences." The attorney coolly replied, "Mr. Brown, are you aware of Coconino County's leash laws?" Kody derided, I know the laws of nature and the laws of God. Man-made laws bend. Gold for the plaintiffs. Here was Kody openly rejecting legal codes on tape. Then the threat of intimidation claim, the mention of nature taking over the fence. Kody wouldn't deny it. Instead, he grew philosophical. I was just commenting on how fleeting man's creations are in the face of nature's might. The lawyer paused, then spoke dryly, so you weren't insinuating that harm could befall your neighbor's new pricey fence? Kody shrugged. I can't control the wind, sir. No man can. But the turning point came when the lawyer introduced the report on the property value, indicating that Kody and Robyn's presence had allegedly lost neighbors hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. Kody lost it. He stood up reportedly, gestured at the lawyer, and bellowed a lie. A filthy lie. My family adds value. We add spirit to that land. That land was barren before we arrived. We sanctified it. These individuals must be paying us. They're leeches, attempting to drain the life from me because they get a glimpse of a celeb and see dollar signs. This is persecution, a shakedown. His attorney attempted to soothe him, whispering, Kody, stop. Sit down. Kody. However, Kody was past reason, on record, in a legal deposition, giving the plaintiffs everything they wanted. He was acting. He was delivering the speech he believed would exonerate him. But all he was doing was digging himself and Robyn a further and further legal hole. He sounded mad, egotistical, and utterly out of touch. He acknowledged his contempt for the law. He came close to acknowledging making the implicit threat. And he displayed no remorse whatsoever. The deposition video and transcript, our insider legal pundit guesses, was the neighbor's ultimate biggest and most damaging weapon. They no longer had to establish he was a nuisance. He had established it himself loudly and clearly on oath, the financial stranglehold. With the depositions in the bag, the neighbor's lawyers knew they had the best of it. Kody and Robyn's attorney knew it as well. The case was, in a practical sense, unwinnable in court. A jury would witness the video of Kody's tirade and the audio of their shouting matches and reward the plaintiffs with everything they demanded and maybe punitive damages to boot. The lawyer for the Browns encouraged them to negotiate a settlement. But the neighbors wanted more than an apology and a vow to behave. They wanted to be compensated. They wanted money for the depreciation of their properties. They offered the Browns' lawyer a settlement demand, a seat payment thought to be in the neighborhood of $750,000. And this is where the Browns' second and more immediate reality came crashing down on them. They were bankrupt. Let's be frank, they are TV bankrupt. They ride in big cars and live in $1 million house, but they have a nightmare cash flow. As we have speculated for years, the loss of the other wives completely devastated the family's income from TLC. Most of their money is invested in two things: Robyn's palace and the Coyote Pass property. They did not sit on $750,000 in liquid cash in a bank account. They likely didn't have a tenth of that. This financial desperation was an open secret, and the neighbor's legal team used it with surgical precision. When the Browns' lawyer countered the settlement offer, stating they couldn't afford it, the neighbor's team deployed their checkmate move. They filed a motion with the court to force Kody and Robyn to produce a full detailed accounting of their financial situation. Bank records, tax returns, TLC deals, the works. This is a normal legal practice when a defendant moves to claim inability to pay. But for Kody and Robyn, it was a nightmare. Opening their books would be exposing the world to just how bad off they really were. They'd see the huge mortgage on Robyn's home, the loans they had probably borrowed, the dwindling TV revenue. It would be the final public humiliation. In addition, it would demonstrate to the court and the plaintiffs that they did not have any ability to make a cash settlement, leading to the next natural progression, putting a lien on their only valuable asset, the Coyote Pass property itself. They were in a bind. If they litigated the lawsuit in court, they'd likely lose and face a huge judgment they'd be unable to pay, resulting in a lien on the land. If they settled out cash, they couldn't pay, which would also result in a lien on the land. All roads led to the same result, losing control of their promised land. And all of this was going on in the shadow of an even larger financial disaster that we until now had only heard rumors about. The bankruptcy link, the hidden fact which turned everything around. That is where our patent theory enters. A theory constructed out of insider rumors and a thorough knowledge of the Browns' financial history. We think this suit from this neighbor was not merely an issue. It was the last straw that broke the camel's back and forced Kody and Robyn into a corner so tight they were forced to look at the nuclear option. Unconfirmed reports have been circulating for months that Kody and Robyn's spending habits, along with their decreased income, had brought them perilously close to insolvency. The whopping mortgage, house, and land property taxes that afford Robyn and her children the lifestyle to which they've grown used, it was a recipe for disaster. That's our theory. With the neighbor's suit potentially bringing $1 million judgment to add to their already monumental debt, Kody and Robyn had no choice but to seek the advice of a bankruptcy lawyer. This was no longer just a lawsuit. It was all about complete financial destruction. Now we have not located a public bankruptcy filing in their names. However, there are various forms of bankruptcy and sophisticated means of asset protection through trusts and LLCs. It's our theory of choice that they went into a type of receivership or a pre-bankruptcy workout, essentially giving control of their prized assets over to a third-party trustee to administer their debt. This trustee, a neutral court-appointed expert, would have reviewed their portfolio and seen one huge underperforming problem-generating asset, Coyote Pass. It was costing them thousands of dollars in property taxes annually. It wasn't producing any revenue. And now it was at the center of an expensive and futile lawsuit. The entry of this bankruptcy trustee or analogous money manager totally turned the tables. Kody and Robyn were no longer at the helm. Their plans were subject to approval by someone whose sole aim was to pay off their debts and plug the financial hemorrhage in the least wasteful manner possible. The neighbor's lawyers, being quite astute, would have immediately known of this new turn of events. They were no longer working with the emotional, illogical Kody Brown. They were working with a detached businessperson. And so they adjusted their settlement demand. They no longer demanded a huge cash payout, something they knew the estate could not deliver. Instead, they made a proposal that was simple in brilliance and cataclysmic in its consequences for the Browns. The new proposal was this: we will drop the lawsuit, forgive the monetary damages, and all sign non-disclosure agreements. And in return, you will sell us your remaining interest in the Coyote Pass land. But they did not propose to buy it at fair market value. Oh no. They made them an offer to purchase it for a fraction of its value. We're talking pennies on the dollar. Our sources indicate that offer was in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $150,000 for a piece of land worth at least 4 or 5 times as much. It was a lowball offer, but it was also a lifesaver for the bankruptcy trustee. This was an ideal deal. It would immediately solve the most volatile and costly legal problem on the estate's hands. It would bring in a minor amount of cash to retire other small debts. And best of all, it would remove the poisonous Coyote Pass asset from the books forever. The trustee would have emphatically recommended that Kody and Robyn accept the offer. Kody, we are informed, was apoplectic. The notion of selling his pledged land to his sworn foes for a penance was a degradation. Beyond his understanding. It was conceding defeat. It was surrender. He wanted to fight, to go down with the ship, to lose everything in a blaze of glory and not give it up. But on this occasion, he was not master of his fate. The trustee controlled everything. And Robyn, with the alternative in front of her, a public bankruptcy, a judgment that might end up losing her house, and a long drawn-out court battle that would bleed their final remaining finances, saw the handwriting on the wall. She realized they were defeated. She reputedly collapsed and informed Kody they had no other option. It was finished. The decision came not in a spasm of pioneer zeal, but in the cold, antiseptic offices of a bankruptcy expert. The dream perished not with a bang, but with a pen stroke on a settlement agreement. The ultimate humiliation, the sale of their kingdom to the invaders. The ultimate settlement was a farce in complete humiliation for Kody and Robyn Brown. As per our source, the conditions were harsh and non-negotiable. Term number 1, the sale. Robyn and Kody were contractually obligated to sell their whole remaining interest in the Coyote Pass property to a corporation created by the plaintiffs, the Coyote Pass Neighbors Association for the bargain. See Sister Wives out.